What would you put in a Brexit deal? So over the next series of videos, we're going to find out what you guys would put in a Brexit deal to make the ideal people's Brexit deal. This video is going to focus on why we're negotiating at all and trade. So let me explain this series. This series is all about finding more information on Brexit over a series of videos. It's not to impose my opinions, they're forums for you guys to comment in the below or participate in the polls in the corner. Basically they're here to narrow down the Brexit options so that we as a channel, as a community, can get a clearer view of what the British people actually want. So please share this because I'm not expecting it to do very well. It is just a PowerPoint, but believe me, you're going to find out some key pieces of information regarding the negotiations and trade today. So why are we negotiating? Why not just go straight to WTO rules? Well, take your mind back to 2016. David Cameron had the EU referendum. Leave won by 52%. And then there was no clear vision for Brexit. There was no plan by the government, and we didn't know what to do then. David Cameron resigned. May's policy was derived from the European Research Group. May triggered Article 50, giving her the legal capability to trigger a no deal. Without triggering Article 50, she couldn't have triggered a no deal, and of course she had to go through Parliament to be able to get to trigger Article 50 in the first place. But she now legally can trigger a no deal if she wanted to, and that's the whole part of the negotiations, is that she can trigger a no deal so that if things are going really badly in the negotiations, she can always walk away. But of course a no deal has a lot of problems. It can spook the financial markets. At the start of negotiations, EU law hadn't been transferred into UK law, so we had to come up with the EU Withdrawal Act. That's still ongoing, still being debated in Parliament, and it's not yet reached its final stage. And of course, negotiating means we can access favourable rights for EU citizens, favourable access to the EU markets, and obviously no hard border in Ireland, which is another huge issue. But negotiating has a number of problems. Remain had a high percentage in the referendum with 48%, emboldening those Remainers. Article 50 is timed for 2 years. You've only got 2 years to negotiate a hell of a lot. And of course we've got this kind of stalemate situation now where neither the EU or the UK can decide on a strategy. But what do the UK people actually want? Well, it kind of depends who you speak to. Some want a no deal, which of course would mean no divorce bill. Some people think the European Economic Area and the European Free Trade Agreement is best. Some hate it. Some want to stay in the single market and customs union, and obviously some want out. Some want to cherry pick to stop freedom of movement. Some people want a second referendum. Talked about that on my channel before. But everybody wants the UK to do well, and there's some people that are scared of the punishment that might result in us leaving, either through the EU punishing us or through an economic punishment through time. So what did the Leave campaign say back before we had this referendum? So back then they said that we would maintain our existing trade relationship with Europe. They said we'd have full passporting rights in financial services. We'd keep the Irish border open, we'd keep our open skies arrangements, we'd keep nuclear isotopes for the NHS, we'd keep security collaborations with Europol, we'd guarantee the status of Gibraltar, there'd be new trade deals with outside the EU, and of course, the big thing, we would control immigration. Why did leavers actually vote to leave? Well, again, different reasons. Some voted because they were afraid of the decimation of UK fishing fleets. Some people might have had a non-EU partner having difficulty getting in the UK because EU partners can get in the UK more easily. Some people might have voted because they disliked EU citizens, vegetable picking. Most people just want the whole saga to be over and done with by now, and they want free trade deals to be struck equitably, quickly and cheaply. So in this plan, I'm going to try and gather all that together and do the following. Have laws decided only by the UK, have borders controlled by only the UK, have UK courts control UK law, have freedom to trade with whoever, treat all immigrants equally, decide who we will ally with, rebuild trade deals with the Commonwealth, keep the pound, decide our own rules and regulations and working practices, control our fishing waters, control over UK spending, control our own farming industry. That's a lot to do in negotiations, but that's what I feel like most British people want. But like I say, it's not about what I'm saying in this video or even what I'm presenting, hence why it's probably the most boring video you're going to see on YouTube. It's more about the comments below and what you're saying in the polls. The information here is simply just to give you information to start a talking point. If we're negotiating a Brexit deal, we've also got to get it passed through Parliament, and of course Parliament is not really designed to have a single opinion. Some people want Brexit cancelled, some want to have your cake and eat it style Brexit, minimising the economic impact that it will create, and obviously some people just want a clean Brexit break and would go on WTO rules if they had to. And of course, let's think about the EU, because we're going to have to negotiate with them, and obviously knowing the other side helps with negotiations. The EU wants us to get on with Brexit. They're probably not going to give us a bespoke deal. They'll want to keep the European Union, and they'll want to cushion the departure from the loss of EU integrated trade. So now we're going to talk about trade. We're going to try and discuss the options available for the UK government to make a trade deal. So these are the different kinds of trade deal throughout the world. Top, you've got political union, fiscal union, monetary union, single market, customs union, free trade area, preferential trade area, and then finally at the bottom, a completely independent economy. So we're going to discuss the pros and cons of particularly those middle three, and we're going to define the rest as well. Let's start at the top with a political union. Political union is a type of state which is composed of or created out of smaller states such as the UK, which is composed of England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. Physical union. Physical union is the integration of the physical policy of nations or states. Under physical union, decisions about the collection and expenditure of taxes are taken by common institutions, shared by the participating government. In other words, it's an area where taxes are the same. Monetary union. A currency union, also known as a monetary union, involves two or more states sharing the same currency, the Eurozone, without them necessarily having further integration, such as economic and monetary union, which would happen in addition to customs. Those are all the things we don't want. I'm now going to talk about the things that we might want. So a single market, we've talked about this before, is an association of countries trading with each other without restrictions or tariffs. So a single market is good because it gives you tariff-free access to other people's nations and markets. It creates trade. It lowers production costs. It lowers prices of products. You can transfer technology. You can cooperate with different nations more easily. And a good thing and a bad thing, you can mobilize labour from one country to another. But of course, the single market means that more efficient non-members are crowded out. It lowers overall wages. It puts pressure on infrastructure. The rules favour some members over others. It creates bureaucracy. And of course, there's lost opportunities to exploit relationships with non-members. And with the EU economy doing so badly recently, that's obviously persuaded the British voters to vote to leave the European Union. Now in Norway, they are not in a customs union, but they are in the single market. They have to prove that their goods come from Norway, so that Norway can't be a way for non-EU members to get goods into the EU tariff-free. So for example, if a good was coming in from Asia into Norway, it wouldn't be able to get in the EU without paying a tariff. But if a good is coming from Norway into the EU, then they won't pay a tariff, but they have to prove it otherwise it could have come from anywhere. Norway has to accept freedom of movement. Again, British people are strongly against that. Norway also has to pay for its access to the single market. The cost of Brexit is already high. We're already paying a divorce bill, so British people wouldn't want to pay. Some solutions to all of that is to be out of the single market. Brits want to leave the European Union, and being part of the single market is part of that. We could negotiate with the EU to charge as low a tariff as possible on goods, so it seemed like we were out. Obviously, it wouldn't be no tariffs, but it would be a low tariff. We could end free movement of people, hopefully, because we're out of the single market. We obviously can't be in the single market and have no freedom of movement. The EU wouldn't allow that. So we could, if we get out of the single market but keep tariffs as low as we possibly could, then it would be like being in. Obviously, it's not going to be completely like being in because we'd have to have no tariffs to be in that single market. Being out of the single market, of course, means we can trade with nations outside the single market. We try and negotiate a no charge for leaving, but obviously Theresa May has already negotiated that £40 billion charge. And obviously, like Norway, if we're going to go for a low tariff option with the EU's consent, we still have to prove that goods came from the UK. Otherwise, anybody could just import goods into the UK and then into the EU to get that lower tariff option. But let me know in the comments if you support being in the single market, or if you're completely against it, or if you make any changes to any things I've just suggested. There's also a poll in the corner where you'll be able to vote on your favourite trading option, and possibly some more stuff when I think of it. So a customs union. A customs union is a group of states that have agreed to charge the same import duties as each other, and they're usually there to allow free trade between themselves. A customs union is great because it increases trade flows. More efficient members can sell to less efficient members, and it solves trade deflection. If a good goes into a country that charges low tariffs on its goods, then into a country that charges high tariffs on its goods, then a customs union, in its name, unifies that custom charge that you pay on those goods. So you don't have to pay the low tariff plus the high tariff, or you don't have to work out what tariff it is that you pay. You can just pay the same tariff to go across all the countries within an area. But a customs union means that a common external tariff can't negotiate trade deals from outside the customs union unless agreed by the entire union. So if we wanted to negotiate with, say, India, and we were still in the customs union, we'd have to get the consent of the entire European Union for them to want to trade with us. We can't give preferential tariffs to declining industries such as UK steel. It's basically the same across the whole board. And when the UK joined the European Economic Community, it had to raise tariffs on imports from the Commonwealth countries. So it makes it harder for the UK to trade with Commonwealth countries. So possible solutions might be to keep the same tariffs on goods as being part of the customs union would be. We'd obviously need to be outside the customs union in order to trade with nations more freely. Otherwise, it means negotiating every trade deal we do with a nation outside the European Union with the European Union, which would take forever. We could apply lower tariffs to countries outside the EU, making trade with them easier, and we could heighten tariffs on declining UK industries, apart from Ireland, obviously, because we don't want to make that border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland hard. We want to keep that open. So it means we can protect things like UK steel, but we can still hopefully trade freely between Ireland and Northern Ireland. A free trade area. Free trade area is the region that encompasses a trade bloc whose member countries have signed a free trade agreement. Such agreements involve cooperation between at least two countries to reduce trade barriers, import quotas and tariffs, and to increase the trade of goods. So a trade area increases economic growth, it creates a more dynamic business climate, We can increase foreign direct investment, we can share expertise, and we can transfer technology. But a free trade area increases job outsourcing because companies can expand to other countries where labour is cheaper. Those poorer countries that can then thieve or take away your intellectual property. In other words, copyright your property. They can have poor working conditions as jobs gets outsourced. There could be a degrading of natural resources, a destruction of native cultures, and reduced tax revenue. Solutions. The EU already has its environmental regulations for that reason, but they would obviously have to be UK based. The EU obviously has labour laws as well, but again, they would have to be UK based in order for us not to be under regulation by the European Court of Justice. If we're still under the European Court of Justice, we're still technically part of the jurisdiction of the European Union. So we'd have to take a lot of regulation back into UK hands. And then helping farmers in developing countries with their farming businesses means reducing our business subsidiaries. So in that sense, foreign aid might be better spent on our own businesses and not in developing other countries' farming capabilities. Preferential trade area is a trading bloc that gives preferential access to certain products from the participating countries. This is done by reducing tariffs, but not by abolishing them completely. So we reduce tariffs on specific products. This sounds a bit more like what I was suggesting just then, but obviously I think when it comes to trading with the EU, we'd have to keep things as similar as they can be for now, and then slowly increase those tariffs as those industries decline in the future, just to reduce that economic impact. It's just my opinion. I'd like to know your opinions in the comments below, and obviously in the poll. What does complete economic independence mean? Well, economic independence is the control of the wealth of a nation by the majority of its citizens. Thus, in any context, economic independence means local ownership of resources and the means of production for the utilisation of natural wealth. So this is a graph that I really wanted to show you. So this big dark green blob is the economic and monetary union of the EU, the Schengen area. And that's, if you, I'm showing you it because geographically, look at where the UK is surrounded by all these green blobs, making it hard for the UK to get any trade into its country when there's this monetary union right next to it. The light green area is just economic union. The light blue area is a customs and monetary union. The brown is the common market, which is Switzerland and Iceland. The orange is other customs unions. The pink is a multilateral free trade areas, I should say, and obviously these are all the governing bodies of those things. So the UK has a lot of options available. There isn't just the EU in the world. There's plenty of different trading organisations. And that's it for today, guys. Let me know in the comments below what trading policy you think is best for the UK. Let me know your opinions in the comments below and subscribe.